All right, before we let our guest in tonight, we got some things we need to take care of. First of all, the social media. Blow it up. We're at Top Prospects TF. Give us a comment, a suggestion. Tell us a little bit about what you thought was important, what was not important, or just give us a little bit of feedback, because what you say is going to help us make this show a lot better. What do you think, Donnie?
Absolutely. That stuff's going to help us a ton. We don't know what we're doing, so we're just trying to share information out there, and spread the word. So whatever you guys want to hear, let us know. That's what we're going to talk about. That's what we want to help y'all do. Grow as coaches, grow as parents, and grow as athletes. So let us know what we can help you get the information out there and what we can do to help y'all out.
Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our guests. Tonight we have two great guests from the softball arena. I think everybody's going to learn a little bit from our guests, be able to get your pen and paper ready. So without any further ado, I'm going to let our guest in here. We have two good guests this evening from the softball arena. We have Sara Scoone and Allison Rager. They're both great softball minds. They're going to give you a little bit of information about themselves, a little bit about the game, some maybe a little bit behind the scenes information that maybe Donnie and I don't know, but we're definitely excited to have them. We're definitely excited to have them tonight. So the first person I'm going to lead into is Sara. Sara, I got to meet, it was my pleasure to meet her last year. She interviewed for a position here at Top Prospects, and she is our softball coordinator. And she is also the assistant coach at West Virginia Wesleyan. And so that right there kind of gives her a little bit of, experience at saying she does it on the lessons end and she does it on the coaching end. So those right there kind of bring it together on Sara. So Sara, can you give us a little bit of background on yourself
Sure. Well, thanks for the introduction. So I'm from Naples, Florida. I have been playing softball now. It seems like forever. I always tell people I'm not an athlete. I'm just a softball player. But I came to Wesleyan in 2014. I was recruited as a middle, and I ended up catching. I had what I consider a great career here at Wesleyan. I got to play in the D2 World Series in 2017. That was an amazing experience. I pride myself in hitting skills, catching, and defense. I try to stick away from pitching. Allison takes care of that. But no, I love the mechanic side of the game, the mental side of the game, and softball is a great sport, so I'm glad to be a part of it.
Sara, can you tell us a little bit more about that journey from being recruited as a middle infielder and then that transition to a different position? I think that's huge for a lot of young athletes to hear. Sure. Athletes that have actually gone through that process, what that was like, both physically and mentally for you.
Sure. Being recruited as a middle infield, I expected to play middle infield, I guess you would say. When I got to Wesleyan, there was an All-American second baseman and a senior shortstop. And when coach said, do you play somewhere else? Absolutely. I think it's critical to know how to play other positions, not just walk in and say, this is what I am. What you are is a part of the team, and you should do whatever it takes to help that team. So I guess the mental side of it was not a problem for me. I prided myself in just being able to play and be a part of whatever success the team had. So the physical side, definitely going from middle infield back into catching after 4 years of not catching. I had to get my legs back in a little more shape. Also, the mental side of the game, catching, I think it's a lot more from catching, working with the pitchers, than being a middle infield, talking to your outfield a lot. Being able to communicate with your pitchers and your coaching staff is a little heavier on the catching side than it is as a middle infielder. So, but I enjoyed the process. I didn't mind switching into catching. I like being in charge of things, so that was nice.
So, Allison, can you give us a little bit of a background on yourself?
Yes, I'm from Elkview, West Virginia, right outside of Charleston. I got recruited to play at Morehead State, which is a Division I school in the Ohio Valley Conference in East Tennessee. And then after my junior year, I transferred to Carson Newman, which is right outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. And I was a pitcher all 4 years. I got recruited and I said, I want to pitch, I want to play a position, and I want to hit. So that was my goal going into college, and that's not very common as a softball player in college. And so a lot of coaches up front are like, you're either going to pitch or you're going to play the field and hit for us, but you're not going to do all three. So I was really big on trying to find a school that would at least allow me the opportunity to prove that I could do all three and earn a spot at hopefully 2 out of the 3. And so Morehead was one of those places. He said, you know, you're an athlete like everybody else on the field. If you can earn a spot pitching, playing a position, and hitting, we'll let you do it. So that was big for me. And going in, I was a third baseman and a pitcher. And I quickly realized that college coaches also don't like their pitchers to play third base. So I had played third base for several years in travel ball in high school before that when I wasn't pitching. And then I realized the speed of the game, although it is fast in travel, is so much faster in college. So sophomore year, I switched to first base when I wasn't pitching. And then come my senior year, when I wasn't pitching, I was playing right field. So I started out as an outfielder when I was young. And my coach said, you know, we want you in the lineup. We want your bat there when you're not pitching. So can you play outfield? And I was like, yes, of course. If that means I get to play every game, I'm down.
Absolutely.
So like Sara said, you know, just being open to playing different positions, even if you've never played them before or it's been a while. If that's your opportunity to stay in every game, then that's huge.
Absolutely. We all love being on the field. How did you balance that as an athlete? I mean, I was a pitcher myself, and I know the time commitment that was. I saw what the other position players were doing. I've seen, you know, one dual player that was a pitcher and an outfielder at the college level that was successful at it. So I'm really interested to hear how you balanced that and not only balanced it, but became successful with all of what you were trying to do.
I think it was a transition and it wasn't, because I had played a position other than pitching my whole life. In travel, you know, every other game you're pitching, but you're switching around because you've only got 10 to 12 players and you're versatile. So you're all playing multiple positions. But when you get to college and you get into hours that you're allowed to practice a week, time you're allowed to spend at the field a day, it comes down to how much work you're willing to put in personally outside of team practice, as well as how much you're willing to exert yourself every single day with the team. So I would go to bullpens 5 to 6 days a week. I would go to individual hitting. I would go to team practice. And then during certain 8-hour weeks and stuff like that, my infield time was cut out to focus on pitching. So I had to make that up on my own time. And that's huge in the off season and in the preseason, that you're getting your reps in, because once it comes down to it in season, practice time gets cut short. And they want you to focus on pitching because that's something that, you know, we need to do almost every day or every other day. So I was still taking reps at practice. I was getting my pitching in before and after practice. It wasn't easy, but I enjoyed every part of the game, and I wanted to continue that.
Yeah, that's unbelievable, and I know I'm definitely interested to hear a lot more about that in the future. So now with work ethics like you guys have, with learning a variety of positions, you know, and I know Tony and I both know a good bit about softball. I know he knows more than I do. So I do appreciate you guys opening us up to the difference into the worlds of softball and baseball. But that's you know, compliance, rules. I can tell that you understand compliance, both of y'all, completely, which is a huge factor for athletes and coaches to understand how to get to the next level. So that's awesome to hear how you balance all of that, and both of you went about the different positions. How have you guys taken that work ethic, that attitude into coaching and dealing with not only players that exhibit that behavior like yourself, but also may have different types of motivation and reward systems?
Ooh, Allison, you want to start? You want me to start?
I can start.
Go right ahead.
I think it's huge to learn how each one of your players is motivated differently as a coach. And that has been a challenge for me because, you know, I grew up and I was taught, like, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to earn my position, nothing's given to me. I'm going to go out and practice every single day, whether it's in season or my next game is 9 months away. And then I had to realize that not everybody is like that. So that was huge. But it has been a challenge just because I went from playing with girls my age to coaching them. And they transitioned well. They respect me. But I'm going to push them just like I would push myself. Yeah.
Well, that's a huge transition for any young coach, right? I think a lot of us that are listening or here can relate to. I know my first chance was from right where I played, and it was the coach that I played for the year before, and he said, "Hey, we need some help," like every team does, and you hop on and you get going. So that's a huge experience, you know, coaching those players that are super young. Sara, what are you doing in your world to help ease that transition and connect with those players and have that relationship with them that you need to have?
Personally, coaching at my alma mater, it was really a difficult step up considering everyone around you doesn't see the change that you're going through personally. So my thing was when I first stepped in last year, I've now been coaching for 2 years at Wesleyan. So my first year, I kind of came off a little strong. If I'm being honest, I had to break the barrier of, okay, I'm not your friend anymore. I'm your coach and you're going to listen to me. And then I had Coach Warner who I'm like, okay, coach, I'm not a player anymore. Like you have to, like, it's like so much balancing that you're trying to take on. But what I realized was it is important to be not buddy, but be friends. You want to be friends with your girls because you're always going to have, as an assistant coach, you have the head coach who's in charge of the lineup. Everything essentially is on their back. So as an assistant coach, you want to be able to be the person that the girls don't always have to run to the head coach. He has so much on his plate already. So being someone that they feel that they're comfortable with and they can come to, I realized is just as important as being the person that teaches them how to hit, how to throw, how to run through a bag right. It all balances itself out, and that was definitely my biggest learning curve.
Yeah, building those relationships is something we talk about a ton in every discussion. So that's really, it's a common theme, and it's fun to hear how different people do that, how they connect with their athletes in different ways, and all those little things they do. I know through my experience, it was really fun. My first career position was in operations. So I got to completely step away from coaching, which was a hell of an experience. But it did allow me to learn about the players in a whole different aspect. And that was one of the funnest experience I ever had is being that person that they could come to, you know, knowing what they like to eat, what they didn't, when they needed that peanut butter and jelly during the game, and when they didn't want to be bothered, all that stuff that I knew that could help in that little, you know, that 10% that the coaches can't. So that's a really neat aspect. I'm sure, Tony, with your experience with the Bombers, the facility, and the local leagues, you've got all kinds of stories about that stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's always going to be difficult from trying to be a friend to trying to be a coach to trying to be an administrator, trying to do multiple things to kind of keep not only yourself happy, but to keep everything going in the direction that you want it to go. So I can understand that. And that was one of the things that Donnie and I wanted to talk to you two about was the transition. You guys are, you know, obviously Allison, I think you're a year removed from the game, and Sara, what, 2 years removed from the game. So how, just how that dynamic worked from just going from a player to now being a person that has the responsibility of making sure you're getting your work in so the head coach can focus in on the administrative part. So kudos to both of you guys. So it seems like you both jumped right in feet first and then are doing a great job.
Thanks. Personally, I think one of the biggest things that one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is, and Coach Warner, heck of a guy, has been doing this for now 30 years, but he said something one time where he said, I always prided myself in working hard, never taking a rep off, and I appreciated my teammates and the girls that did that. So when I came into coaching, that was something where I wanted to fight for the underdog. Like, if they're the ones that are putting in all this work, they're doing the extra work, that adds up in my eyes, and as well as his. But he made a statement one time. He said, hard work will get you far, but in the game of baseball, softball production gets you a little farther. And it really opened my eyes to seeing how you have to be the person who, if he asks you a question about this person compared to this person, it's not just, oh, well, this person is working so hard, let's put this person in. It's who's going to get the job done this day, this moment, and help the team out in the long run.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, that's to learn that so early. I mean, that's a big step. We think, Don.
Yeah, that's man, that's something that could open a can of worms that that coaches. I love it. I love talking about that stuff. And I think when you're an honest coach, there's no problem talking about that stuff. But it's that decision making and making in lineups, and of course, I've had the pleasure and experiencing of coaching from T-ball all the way up to the collegiate level and national teams and recreational teams, and trying to change the system from when I was 20 years old and Tony and I first met, to now, and the growth and learning how to make a simple decision of who to put in the lineup is parents, athletes. I don't think they'll ever know the restless nights, how much I think about that. Heading to a tournament with a 13-year-old team now, of how much we think about that stuff the night before, the drive there, the minute to the pen hits the lineup card and you hand it to the umpire, that I don't know if there's anything we think about more than those decisions right there. And it's because of what you said that we take the time to build these relationships. We see the kids put in the time, put in the effort, and then we see the kids that just simply can't produce the way we need them to produce on the field. And deciding who you are as a coach, at what level do you apply sort of the competitive nature versus the recreation nature of getting everybody what they need. But it's sometimes, especially at the level you're at now, not only we have to have the athletes produce, or we don't get paid, right? And of course, we don't do it for the pay. Obviously, I know none of us on this call get paid enough to coach the way that we do. But if we don't make the production, we're not at least getting the table scraps that we can now, So that's such an awesome topic. I'm interested, Allison, to hear your thoughts on that as well. But yeah, the thought process in general that goes into making those lineup decisions is brutal. I know when you care about your players and you make that I remember to this day the first time you make that decision where you got to bench the kid that you care about more because he's not producing.
Yeah. So go ahead, Allison. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to piggyback on what Sarah said, that was something huge that I learned this year. We had a smaller staff pitching than we expected to. And so to see some of the girls work really hard and not get as much time as the other girls, I was like, dang, like they're putting in the work. I see it every single day. But like you said, you have to produce to continue getting in the game, and the coach has to win games to keep his job. And so that's when I think I truly realized, like, you see the behind the scenes stuff, but then you see like, okay, well, this is the job. And if we're not getting paid, we're not winning. Like, we're not winning, we're not getting paid.
Yeah, we got to make those tough decisions. So I appreciate that perspective and being open and honest with that. That's a tough thing as a coach. So I appreciate that. And I know one thing that helped me a lot from transitioning as a young coach to just a not as young coach was being able to recognize the hard work that kids put in that didn't look exactly like the hard work that we put in. You know, I have kids now that will spend hours analyzing video, you know. It's hard to see that as a coach. We don't see that, you know, that field, things like that. There's all the technology and all the tools that's out there that is different for the athlete now. So I know I'm interested to hear a little bit about even from a year to 2 years difference of your guys' playing career to you're now coaching their career, the tools that are different now that you're seeing the athletes use. And I'm sure you're learning new tools now as we transition into this or hopefully out of this quarantine. But I'd love to hear the tools that you guys had as players that helped you through that. And then now as coaches and how that's applying through this COVID-19 situation.
Ooh, okay. Well, first I would say like, just from freshman year to senior year of college, oh my gosh, or freshman year of high school to senior year of college. You got like those little bat trackers. They'll show you your whole bat path.
Yeah.
Oh, they're so little, so nice. Before you were taking the big iPad out and analyzing everything you did at each swing. Now it can just be sent right to your email and you have it to do in your dorm. But I think going from something like that where you had to have the two people kind of interaction, like something is set up for you, they're holding it, they're talking to you, they're showing you how to do it, and now switching over to something that you can put on your bat yourself and see the bigger picture in front of you without anyone else working with you is just insanely helpful for this sport, especially during COVID-19 right now when coaches can't coach. We're told that we can't do our job, we can't do what we love to do unless it's through the phone. And as easy as that can be sometimes to look at a picture and say, well, you have to do this, it's one thing to say it, it's another for that athlete to understand what you're telling them, especially when you can't show them and you know what I mean, demonstrate for them, talk them through it.
Yeah, because it's definitely, Donnie, as you know, it's kind of different when you're trying to coach online. You know, you're trying to get that dynamic that you would have when you're in person, and now you're trying to teach them to learn something, and you're trying to get it through a camera. Things have definitely changed, so I feel you on that, sir.
I think kind of going off of what she said, video has always been huge for me. I'm a visual learner. I like to see it. And so just being able to video, go back and go through each part of my motion or somebody else's motion and kind of circle or compare like what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, just even from one pitch to the next. And there's so many good apps out there to use.
Yeah.
Obviously our iPhones have improved a lot. So just with your camera, you can do a video breakdown of a pitch or a swing or somebody throwing a ball overhand. But video has always been huge for me, and we started to use that even more as I got into college. But preparing for college, one thing for pitchers that was super helpful was they have a ball and a radar, and it tells the spin rate, which was amazing because I think when you're young, people tend to teach throw hard, throw strikes, and spin kind of gets put on the back burner. And so as I got older and as I got closer to preparing for college, spin was something that I really focused on a lot. And that was a tool that every couple of weeks or once a month, just to kind of see where you're at, whether it's clocking the speed or clocking your spin. Radars have improved a lot too. So both of those things I know in the bullpen are very helpful.
Yeah. Allison, what are you doing as a coach? I know spin rate is one of those things, being a pitching guy myself, it's, I think the hardest thing that I've come across is how do we coach young players to understand spin rate, how it affects them, and then how to improve it or change it as needed. What are y'all doing to apply all that you're learning with spin rate?
So I had a pitching coach. I was fortunate enough to have a pitching coach that really focused on spin and just feeling the ball out of your fingertips. So that's something that we focus on in the bullpen. There's so many drills, so many different tools, spinners, big balls. We even will use baseballs, double balls, zip balls, which are so small, smaller than a baseball. But it's just feeling the pitch out of your hand. And there's a really good drill where we'll throw with our eyes closed from the mound. And I mean, you know where the catcher is, you know where your foot is.
Drills.
Right.
I got some friends who would get super excited about that. So we definitely on pitching. Some proprioception drills. I love that stuff, and that's teaching feel, coaching feel. That's really neat. I have I know my young players, as we begin pitch development for them, we simply start modifying the fastball with finger pressure and different feel on different sides of the finger. And as we teach a change up, we call it a 3-finger fastball to start. So they learn what it's, they learn what it's like to have that extra friction and all that stuff. So we need to, Sara, what are you doing? Cause we'll talk for another 2 hours about that stuff if you let me go too far.
What am I doing with drills and stuff?
I don't know. I forget. I just wanted to stop talking about it. Let somebody else talk about something.
Actually, I think one thing that is pushed to the back burner for any athlete, any position, what you do skill-wise is so important, but it is also so important to be in shape, to run, to work out, to be strong. You can hit a ball right all you want, but you got to get the bat speed in it also. You have to get your hips. You have to be strong with your lower half. So I think that's really crucial, especially now during COVID-19 with all these gyms closed and girls not having workout equipment at home. Run, go buy a band on Amazon, do your exercises. Don't lose any muscle mass.
Yeah, and that's real good. So adding on to that, now I know both of you, I know Sara, you do a lot of lessons as I see. How do you kind of translate that to your athletes, that when you're training them to kind of understand what you're trying to get across? Like, here is the serious business of how to get to the next level. So how are you helping your athletes?
I think one of the best things that I do is I'm very transparent. If someone has a question about their weaknesses, I say I have an athlete who their goal is to hit a home run. Okay, well, this is why you're not right now hitting a home run. It's not, if you do this, you'll do it. If you do this right, you're going to hit a home run the very next game. It's if you do this consistently, every day, every week, every month, you're going to hit your home run. So I think something that I think helps out is being completely transparent with the athlete and their parents. I think parents play a huge role in younger athletes because I think they set a standard for their kid to reach. And if they communicate to their kid that you've already reached this standard, then work ethic declines. And I think that goes hand in hand with parents and coaching, because at the same time, your athlete might be your athlete, but they're not your child. They're going home and they're taking in other information while you're not there. So I think you just have to be transparent with every athlete, with every parent. Make sure that they understand this is the goal and this is how you're going to do it, and it's not a one-day thing.
Yeah. Now, do you take like your philosophy on lessons? Have you taken any of that from your college experiences or from your coaching, your head coach, or anything like that?
Absolutely. I take so much information from Coach Warner. I really admire that man, and he's done a lot for me, and I think he's probably one of the best minds in the game that I've met personally, and he's definitely someone that I admire. So when I can communicate with him about things that I'm even seeing in athletes that aren't his, and I'll show him videos and I'll show him what I say, and he shows me what he sees. And sorry, I got off topic, but yeah, I do take stuff from
we all do it, don't worry.
My college days. And I actually think it's really important that being young, like me and Allison, how we just started coaching and we're still in our early 20s. I think taking stuff from your playing days is what makes you relatable to athletes now.
Yes.
If I'm able to tell you my struggles and look at an athlete and say, it's okay, I did this, and you will overcome it. I went through the exact same thing 2 years ago. I just think it really helps out, especially the athletes now that you're coaching. You can be someone that they relate to, and it just makes the process a lot easier.
Yeah, so I know from a smaller scale, I know I'm not coaching in the college rank, but I do try to bring back some of my past Bomber kids that are like in high school to kind of teach some of the younger kids because they look up to those guys. And like you said, they were that age not too long ago, you know. Old guys like me, they're going to say, yeah. But if you bring a young guy in or a young person, they're more apt to listen to what they have to say because one, they can kind of relate and they see a young face and they kind of know the pressure's off a little bit. I could per se. I'm not saying that the pressure's not on, but they can kind of relax a little bit and they're not trying to do it just to please their coach. Allison, how do you use a lot? What's your philosophy when you teach pitching? How do you use what you've learned in college, high school, and from some of your past coaches in your lessons?
Well, kind of like you were saying and Sara was saying, it is a lot easier for us to relate just because we have been athletes more recently. And I will take, yes, I used to do this when I was pitching, or I'm working with somebody younger and I can see they're getting frustrated and, we're working on a new pitch or we're working on a part of your motion that we're trying to correct. And it's like just instant frustration. And I see myself when I was younger in them and I'm like, okay, like I was the same way, but if I could go back and tell myself this 1 hour lesson doesn't mean a thing 10 years from now, like you're working on getting better, which is fantastic. Like you're coming out here and you're working hard. But one thing that I really stress at lessons is we can come here and work for 45 minutes to an hour every, once a week or every other week. But if you don't go home and I don't see you for 12 days and you haven't pitched but once since I last saw you, then the hour and the money that your parents are paying and the time that you all are spending is being wasted because we have to go through it all again for the majority of the next lesson. So just repetition is huge, and especially with pitching when you're younger, consistency is huge. When I was younger, I used to hate to go out and throw into a net. I just wanted a catcher. And I know my dad and I know my catchers did not want to chase down balls when I was 8 or 9 years old. Every time I would throw them over the fence or throw them over the backstop. But that's one thing I really stress to my pitchers too is your net is your best friend because it won't critique you. You can go out there and practice for hours and it's never going to say anything to you to frustrate you. You can go out there and work. You can work on what we've talked about. You can work on what you've watched, what other people have taught you. But just whatever you do, make sure you're practicing. And usually at the end of a lesson, we'll go through, these are the main 3 things we talked about today. Now, here's your homework. And whether it's me writing it down, the parents writing it down, putting it in your notes in your phone or whatever, I'll tell them this is what you're going to work on before I see you next time. And then they'll say it back to me. And so then next time I'm like, okay, did you do your homework? Like, did you do what we talked about? Have you thrown in the last 8 days?
Right. Actually, so what's the specific stuff that you guys are telling your athletes to do now, whether it's some of your lessons, your college athletes with things shut down, not being able to be in person with them? Sara, you mentioned staying in shape. Allison, pitchers, I know I've struggled personally with pitching the most because it's my thing. I want to be hands-on, and they don't have catchers for the most part. What are those specific things that you guys are doing and you recommend to stay in shape right now as an athlete in general? And then, of course, I like to hear about pitching, but other positions as well.
A couple things that I've told the girls that I give lessons to during this break, I ask them what their daily routine is. And if they say, oh, well, I don't do anything. Well, okay, well, we're going to start by doing something. Like your goal is to get out, do something. But one of the most, I think one of the easiest things to do is to take someone's day, what they're already doing, and not change it, but add to it. So I was talking to one of my lessons the other day, and she says, "Oh, I watch Netflix all day." Okay, well, while you're watching Netflix, don't let your feet touch the floor. Hold your feet off the floor. Work your quads. Do something that you don't have to change your day. You can do what you want, but it's still beneficial in some way. And I think that goes hand in hand with mental health. I'm not trying to go off a road here.
It's
But
very important during this time, though. So if you go
yes.
down the road, that's what we need.
And when so if you're in the house all day and you're doing nothing and, you have to challenge your mind, especially in the sport of baseball, softball. It's such a mental sport. I mean, it's really like, it's 20 physical, 80 mental. And if you're doing nothing at all to challenge your mental self, then you're really going to go on a fast decline rate and it'll show quick. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
ahead,
Just
Allison.
kind of to go off what she was saying, just talking about mental health, I've been on my pitchers, some more than others, because we all have our strong points, obviously, but there's so many podcasts, so many books, audio books through Amazon for free, just so many resources that you can use, and now you finally have the time. You may have had the time before and just not made the time to focus on it, but it's so big and something that we definitely neglect as athletes, and I know as softball players. For me growing up, that's not something that was talked about nearly enough. So just like utilizing those resources, 30 minutes to an hour a day, along with, like Sarah said, working out, go out, run, do a hit workout for 30 minutes, ride a bike, anything to just stay in shape, to keep moving.
Allison's doing a lunging challenge right now. He asked me if I wanted to do it. My answer was
that sounds
no.
awful.
But
We have no eligibility left.
what was it, Allison? 250 lunges a day or something like that?
For like 8 days.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But stuff like that's great. You see a lot of that stuff right now that's keeping people active, keeping the mind going. I know as much as we want to learn during this time, which is exactly what brought us to doing the podcast, the Zoomcast. Before we sort of move off that topic, I do want to touch a little bit on what you guys think. I know for me, I've had to sort of tell myself it's okay to not be doing everything right now. This is our time of year that, as Tony can account, I'm a little scatterbrained and all over the place as it is. But if you got me and I'm there, we're going to make some stuff happen and we're going to have a lot of fun. And this time of year, I look forward to getting out. I think I made a comment last week with JT and them that, baseball's therapy. We all grew up with the game, and softball for you guys and the coaches now are our best friends and all this stuff. And, but what have you guys done to sort of say it's okay to feel the stress, the anxiety, the not being able to get out there and coach is causing us?
Oh, I told somebody the other day, this is my first, in March. I said, this is the first March I've had free since I was 6 or 7 years old. And so as hurt as I was for the seniors and the girls who were losing their seasons and, had future plans and they couldn't come back and utilize that 5th year of eligibility. At the same time, I was like, wow, what am I going to do with myself? Or at the time I was like, okay, maybe a month, but now I've been home for almost 7 weeks, and it's kind of like a time where I, can look back and reflect on the year and how to grow for the next year, as well as have a lot more time to prepare for, summer workouts and lessons and fall season for our girls. As well as just kind of like take some time to do things that I wouldn't have made time to do or necessarily had time to do for the last 15 years.
Yeah, I think the key word in all of this is balance. Just being able to start journaling, write down in a planner what you want to do today, this week, this month, set goals. We stressed to our girls, thankfully, we didn't have any seniors on our team this year. So we're coming back with a full squad, which is so great. But on the flip side, we have a full squad where 5 months they've done nothing. So like no live hitting. And
Fun.
I mean, it's with everyone. So I guess we're not alone in this, but to be able to come back at the same place that you left it, if not better, is what we're stressing. So do I expect you to come back and have lost 20 pounds? You have a 6-pack? No. But I expect you to swing a bat and I expect you to throw a ball and not tell me after the first day that you're sore from doing so.
Right. And we're all in the same boat, like you said. So that is the one good thing as a coach. We know that, that most other teams are in exactly the same boat. We're all having the same struggles. It's really hard to get a competitive advantage in this time. But what are some of maybe the unexpected, maybe the negatives, but maybe some of the unexpected positives that are going to come from this time of being shut down and locked inside?
I was thinking today, and I think a lot of times, just like anything else, when we spend too much time doing something, we take it for granted. And so just going to the ball field every day, I know the girls have class, the girls have workouts, they have homework, they want to have a social life. And I can guarantee, because I know there were some days that I did, as much as I loved it, that I took it for granted. And it was like, okay, another day of dragging the field, another day of showing up for practice. It's hot, it's really cold. But now it's, I hope that everybody comes out next year with a whole new mindset, that any game could be your last, which is what we were telling our girls the last week of the season this year. You never know when it could be your last game, but I think not taking it for granted and just seeing every day as another great opportunity. You're here, you're playing college softball. This is what you worked for your whole life.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off that too, one thing that we always talk about here at Wesleyan is who has the passion and who has the grit. And I think, not saying that I'm a part of this new generation or not a part of it, but coaching the younger that they are, it seems like they've lost the drive to just do absolutely whatever it is to be on the field. And that hurts as a coach to think that you might love it more than your player, because nobody wants to feel like that. So hopefully, this break brings these players back and they're just absolutely hungry, just ready to go.
Yeah, I think that's what we're all getting to. The same common denominator is come back better than what we were when we went into this quarantine. I've been trying to tell, like I said, I coach a lot of the young guys. So I try to tell them, work on your craft. There's so many different things that you can do. Allison alluded to it. You throw in your net, hit in your net. I even have them doing workouts like lunges and planks and all that stuff. And here they are 11 and 12 years old, but I'm trying to teach them, what the big picture looks like. Just this past week, on the mental side of it, I gave them a 12 answer or a 12 question quiz just to kind of get their minds moving and going. So we have a Zoom call on Sunday, and we'll go over the test, the quiz. So that'll give them something to kind of keep their acumen. So as a coach, and you guys are coaches, our responsibility is to the acumen of the game is our responsibility that should translate to our players. So I don't want to get off topic or subject or anything, but that is one of the things that I try to do. But do you guys use any of that, like classroom work in your college level coaching, Allison?
So when I was at Moorhead, our outfield coach, we didn't do this as a team. I know a lot of college teams do this, but they, as an outfield group, would read a book, and then once a week they had homework on the book. So whether it was a review, whether it was a take this and apply it to, your life, how you can use this every day. And I think that is huge. I was on a Zoom call earlier this week with about 300 coaches, and all they talked about, for 20 minutes was, these books are great for your team. This is how you can bring your team together. This is how you can kind of all be on the same page. And so that's something that I'm hoping to implement with at least our pitching staff this coming year.
Cool. What about you, Sara?
We actually at Wesleyan did not do anything like that. We always had I think a lot more stress was put on our coaching staff than our players. Their job was to be prepared and ready to go for practice, and our job as coaches was to be prepared and ready to go for practice. I think it's very obvious if you have a coach show up to a practice who is not prepared on what they're going to do, and it translates to the rest of the team. So as a player at Wesleyan, it was very demanding at practice, and it was just go down to the last second. And I mean, now as a coach, I can see how Coach Warner schedules this. I mean, he'll literally say, okay, at 5:53 we're doing this, and it'll last until 5:58, and I'm like, okay, like I got the watch, like here we go. So we actually never really did any outside work, and I think as a player it was nice, actually. I appreciated the fact that I could focus on softball at softball and focus school at school.
Good. Good.
Yeah, I've seen a couple different trains of thoughts and different. I think that relates to understanding your athlete, which ones need those kind of things and which ones don't need those kinds, those little extra things. So I love the books. I read a lot myself, and I've seen players, from when I was a coach to when I was in operations that responded really, really well to that extra work and getting that extra sort of mental. Usually the pitchers enjoy that mental work a little bit more than everybody else, but that stimulation is great. But like you said, there was times where it's, where you just want to shut that off and you want to be able to unwind. But I have that chapter I have to read by tomorrow's practice, and it weighs on you sometimes. So I like that balance and that different perspective on how we interact with our athletes when it comes to that stuff.
There is one book that I read as a player, and I really recommend it. It's called The Mental Keys of Hitting. I don't know if any of you have read it. It's such a good read. Read it. Like, if anyone watches this, read that book. But,
what do you mean if anyone watches this?
no, like for those that watch this.
I'm just playing. I'm just messing with you.
That's funny.
I would agree. I read one also. It was called Chasing Excellence by Ben. I'm probably going to butcher the last name. Bergeron. He works with CrossFitters, and so it wasn't totally focused on softball, but it was focused on your work ethic and a lot about your mental state when you're competing on and off the field or whatever your competition setting looks like. It was huge. It was definitely huge for me.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, I'm gonna throw something out there real quick because I kind of want us to capture another set of the audience. Just for like the younger group, for the group that is behind your age, Sara and Allison, below the 20s. Maybe the sophomore, freshman, maybe even the 8th grader in middle school. But, I did a little research on both of you. And, Sara, I saw the time that you were in school, you went to 4 regionals, 4 super regionals, conference championships twice. You got to go to the World Series. Allison, you was a pitcher of the year. You did very well. You threw multiple no-hitters. All those things are great. Now, for the younger group, how do they get themselves from a softball standpoint? How do they get themselves seen, and where what are the outlets to get to the next level of college? So if you're speaking to an 8th grader, what kind of opportunities are you telling them that you suggest that they should do?
Like in the recruiting process?
Yeah, or
like
just
stepping into that.
Yeah, how can they, what's a little bit of a formula to get them to where they want to be?
Personally, I would say do one-on-one lessons. It's very, very hard to have a direct focus at a full travel team practice and a high school practice. Go and do a lesson so someone along the way, whether it's right or wrong, you are working one-on-one and you are figuring out your own strengths, your own weaknesses, and you're not comparing them to others around you. I highly, highly, highly recommend one-on-one lessons. 2, for the freshman, sophomore group of high school, if I could go back and do it all again through stepping into the recruiting process and doing the recruiting process, if you want to be seen, you must go to them. No, unless you are an absolute star, you are not going to have coaches following you around. You have to go to the camps. You have to go to the tournaments. You have to make that sacrifice. If your goal is to play at Florida and you're only going to tournaments in Pennsylvania, it's going to be difficult. You have to make a sacrifice somewhere along the line to pick what you want, what's best for you personally, and then pursue that and go after it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say as a younger athlete, I know my dad had me sit down and write out, how far away do you want to be from home when you go to college? If you don't want to go to school 12 hours away, don't email schools that are 12 hours away.
Yeah.
If you don't mind being across the country and your parents might get to come to 2 games a year, email everybody you want. But focus on how far away you want to be. If you have an idea of what your major is, kind of look into their fields of study. Do your research on the coaches and on the school itself. And then I would say go to camps and send videos. When you're sending emails, I'm sure you do, Sara, but every day, even especially now that we're in quarantine and nobody has anything else to do, they just send videos.
Mm-hmm.
And if the first 2 lines of an email are like every other, email we get, or looks like it's been sent to 50 other people on the same day, we're like, I'm not going to take the time. And a lot of times, if somebody does include an email, a video in the email, we're more likely to watch the video and get back with the person, or at least watch the video and then you have a face to put, with the name, versus just a name on a list of 100 other emails we got today.
Yeah. To piggyback off of that, 2 things. Definitely never send a mass email. Mass emails, just don't do it. Don't do it. 2, there are rules that coaches have to follow from the NCAA. If you are a freshman and sophomore in high school and you are emailing your butt off and you are not getting any responses, do not take it personal. There are rules that we have to follow that give us a guideline of when we can reply, respond, pursue you. So you might not get the response you want or a response at all. Keep sending those emails, follow up. Don't ever get discouraged. It's a tough thing to go through. The recruiting process is a lot, but there are a ton of schools out there. There's a school for everyone, whether it's near or far. There's a spot for you. I also stress, I had a discussion once with a player who asked me about going through this process and what they should do and when they should do it. And I think one of the most important things is to figure out what kind of player you are. Are you someone who will go to any program at all just to play? Are you someone who is just die hard, you must win? So playing time, you might not see playing time until your junior year. Well, okay, is that okay with you? Do your research on the team. See how many people are shortstops on this team. So if you're a shortstop and there's 8 other shortstops listed and they're all freshmen, you might want to swerve away from that if that's what you're trying to do. So just figure out what it is that you and your family are looking forward to and what you're willing to sacrifice.
Yeah, I think that's huge, especially as a pitcher. I know I went to some camps freshman year high school and hear the coach talk and they'd say, yeah, we have 7 pitchers on our staff. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to go somewhere and pitch every 6th game, If I want to go somewhere and play, I want to be on the mound every other game. I want the ball in my hand. And so just like you said, kind of like know the team, know the coach, know their philosophies. And then another thing about recruiting that I think is huge, that I learned probably too late, is use the phone. Pick up the phone and call.
Yes.
Because if you can get a coach's number, even if you're not old enough for them to call you back, give them a call, leave a message, and chances are you're likely to hear back from them at some point.
I totally agree with that. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, so I think two of the things you guys talked about were really self-evaluating and educating, right? So understanding who you are as a player, what you have to offer, and then understanding where, what places have to offer you, understanding the coaches. I think a lot of players overlook how big that relationship is, especially when you get beyond the Division I level. I think it plays a little bit more of a role, having those relationships with the coaches, get to know the players that are already there, but self-evaluate and then educate yourself and the parents, how crucial they can be in that process to understand the rules that you guys were talking about. They're not hard to find, right? They're not hard to find at all. NCAA puts them out there for everybody to see. So I know that education piece is absolutely crucial for recruiting purposes and for any young player to understand what coaches have to go through and what rules that they have to follow. And everything that has to do with that, the more they know about that, I would think you guys would agree, will help them in the whole process.
There's one other thing. There's an app out there for, I can't speak on baseball side, but for softball, there's an app. It's called Softball University. I believe it's a $2 app. It has every single school, conference, coach's email, and coach's phone number listed on it. Get the app. It's worth it. Send your emails through it. Call from it. It has all the information you could use.
The Softball University?
It has the icon of, it's a white background and it has a yellow softball in it. And it says Softball University in cursive right on it.
The insider info right there. That's what we need. So with all of this, with talking about recruiting, I think this is great. How are you guys planning to move into the next season, the recruiting process finishing up, and what's that look like? And then how are we moving on from this? How are we getting out of this quarantine and getting back onto the field?
Just to pick up where we left off, just going to hit the ground running, just like every other year. School starts in August. Hopefully we're allowed back on the field by then. We got a huge class of freshmen coming in, I know, at Wesleyan, and we're really excited for it. Just going to hit the ground running. That's all I got.
Yeah, I think that'll be huge for us, is coming back at least where we left off. We have a huge team next year as well, with a couple of our seniors coming back, adding some new girls to the team. So we're bringing back a lot and bringing in even more. And so I don't know about you all, but I know that just getting on the field, seeing field time, seeing live pitching, and getting in situations in the fall is going to be huge, since we missed out on over half of our season this spring.
Yeah. It's a long time not seeing live.
So that's going to be a lot of challenges to overcome when we get back on the field. And I'm sure when we, as coaches, we're going to do as much planning as we can for that first practice. But, man, the unknowns, the obstacles, the hurdles, people not being in shape, that for us, the 90-mile-an-hour fastball is going to look 110. Those curveballs are going to move 8 feet instead of 4 feet, right? And, so those challenges and obstacles are going to be we can't even predict them, right? Because we've never been in this situation. The closest thing is maybe coming out of an off season, a bad winter off season, maybe in West Virginia. That's the closest thing we can do.
A bad winter off season.
All right. So I know.
I know actually. Oh, sorry. You go.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when all of this whole pandemic started, here in the MEC, Wesleyan actually was the first team where we were not considering the conference guidelines kind of thing. Wesleyan took it into their own hands and they canceled all of our spring sports. So we actually went a week being notified that we're done, our season's over, and the MEC was still playing. So that was something that was just, right in the gut. Like, how could this happen? So then when the NCAA canceled everything, it actually, as sad as it was, made us feel better. So we really cannot wait to get back out there. Cannot wait.
And that's going to help everyone get better. I'm sure you guys, or you have talked to some of your peers or some of the people on your coaching staff, and everybody's trying to, or like Allison said, you don't know how much you missed something until it's not there anymore. So I think from your standpoint of everything being shut down a week before everyone, and then Allison, you guys or in the middle of I think you guys played like 20 games maybe, and then you had to shut down. That's 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 hard, you know. So I think trying to come back and trying to come back the right way, I think is going to be the toughest part. Is we can't just dive right back into it. Your expectations have to be somewhat realistic, because like you said, it's been a long time since we've seen any live pitching. So, can you guys give us some of your influences? Who has influenced you in softball or even outside of softball?
Allison, you go.
Okay.
He has more than I do.
Oh gosh. I don't know. I was thinking about it today, and growing up, just watching people like when we were little, it was Jenny Finch, Kat Osterman, Monica Abbott, and listening to, you know, it's one thing, like you, Sara, were saying earlier, for your dad or your coach to get out there and tell you, like, this is what you need to do, this is what you have to do to be good. You know, they've never thrown a softball underhand in their life, but they're telling you this is what you got to do to get where you want to be. And so watching older girls and watching girls, like, growing up in college, and then, like you said, going to lessons and having somebody that's done it recently, you know, to be able to watch them and be influenced by them. I know going to high school games when I was younger, I was like, I want to be the starting pitcher on the team just like her 10 years from now. You know, I want to be playing softball on ESPN or whatever channel, you know, 15 years from now. So that was huge. And influences. I've had so many good coaches. I've had my fair share of both. My dad was a huge influence, just hard work ethic. You know, he was never going to sugarcoat it. You're either going to practice, you're going to, you know, see your results from practicing, being good, being consistent, or you're not. So that's up to you. At a certain age, I can't make you. I had some very good coaches in college. I had some very good travel ball, junior league coaches growing up. And yeah.
I grew up I obviously watched softball, watched college World Series. There's not much professional softball to watch out there. That's just how it goes. I grew up big into baseball. I was a huge baseball household. My dad taught me how to throw a ball with 2 fingers, and if I threw with my whole hand, it was wrong. So that's how, I mean, it was just die-hard baseball. But I actually think my influences, I was never really influenced by another player. I was influenced by things that I wanted to accomplish. I grew up in Little League. My mom was the president for 9 years, and big all-star household. Did everything for Naples girls softball, and growing up in that, Naples girls softball is actually the reigning title holder of the World Series champs. Naples girls has 18 World Series titles. So growing up, having all the teams ahead of us accomplish that, it was just the only goal I had. I had to get there. I had to win states. I had to do it. So then I took that with me, I think, all through college. And, you know, I'll never forget calling my parents saying, we won. We just won supers. Like, we're going to the World Series. I did it. So I think that was probably one of my biggest influences.
That gave me chills hearing you say that.
That's huge. I mean, you just had the drive from the beginning. It just seemed like you were in a setting where you had the drive, like you said. It wasn't someone necessarily influencing you, but you were self-motivated. And then when you got through Little League and through high school, and then you got to play in the World Series in college. So it sounded like you've had a pretty good career. So
I'm really blessed. I was just flat out blessed. You can't help where you're from, and I just happen to be from a good place. That's all I got.
Yeah, Donnie, what do you got to add to that?
I'm just listening to the stories there. That's always been intriguing me to find out where people came from. You know, talking about books, one of the books that kicked me off in college was one called Bounce. And it was all about where great athletes come from and why they become the way that they do. So that's always interesting little tidbits to me. You know, and it always comes back to the same stuff. It's drive, whether that shows up in, you know, work ethic physically or mentally, whatever it is. You know, people work hard in some aspect or another. And then there's always good coaches and good influences in their lives. Very rarely has anybody made it by themselves. You know, at all. There's always somebody that's pushing them from one form or the other. So it's really neat to hear who that was for certain people. You know, like we had some stories last week. We all, as others tell those stories, we all recall those moments that we have. So it's always fun. And I really appreciate hearing those stories, Sara and Allison, and taking so much from them. You know, chills from hearing those, winning. Everybody dreams of all of those moments, getting to those big moments. And a lot of us don't ever get there. So it's fun to live those moments through others. And especially when we know the work that it takes to get there and we've been a pitch away, you know, and then we get to live through others that actually we're on the other side of that.
I think one of the,
I'm good on that side.
I think like one thing too that I just really want to add into here, is being in any sport, being a college athlete, the old saying, comparison is the thief of joy. Don't be that player who sets yourself up to think that the only good thing about a sport is being the top dog SEC athlete. There are so many things you can accomplish going anywhere. Just never, ever, ever compare yourself to someone else's story and their line of what they're doing, because it's never going to be the same.
Yeah, I agree. That's huge. That's something I kind of we were talking about lessons earlier and talking to younger girls and younger athletes. You know, from going from a mid-major D1 to a D2, I had to go through the recruiting process twice, and that's not something I would wish on anybody, because after it's done the first time, it's like, thank God we're done with this. I'll never have to do this again. But also, just choosing a school and picking where you want to be, you know, it's not all about the level of play, because I personally think a lot of our, you know, schools that we play and the team that I was on my senior year, and you could probably say the same, D2 schools would beat a lot of the mid-major D1 schools. And so I encourage the younger athletes, if you're not going to a Power 5 conference school, really look into the D2 schools that are super competitive and have good academic programs, because that was huge. And I know when I was transferring, I wasn't set on going to another Division I program. Funny, because I was even considering Wesleyan, but
yeah, we didn't get her. That was my first year coaching. That was the first player I lost.
But just really hone in on, you know, the relationship part with the coaches, how they, you know, run their teams, and like you said earlier, like the makeup of the team, because exactly what you said, I would agree with. It's not all about going somewhere and being the star, because coming out of high school, everybody's a star. When you face a lineup 1 through 9 is a star. So you're going to be with stars and play against more stars.
That's it. The best of the best of the best, right? So, well, I know this is awesome. I love talking to you guys. This has been great. I'm out. I'm just in awe listening to what you guys have to say. Tony, I don't know what else you've got, but I really appreciate you guys coming on and dropping some knowledge on us.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, you know, to add to that, do you have any like parting words for our folks that are out there watching and listening, Sara and Allison?
Just continue to work hard, set your own personal goals, set team goals, set things that you want to accomplish with the girls around you, because you can't do it alone, not in this sport. And then just be a competitor. Go hard. Don't waste anything. As you can see, the pandemic showed us, you do never know when your last game is. So go hard.
Yeah, that's huge. I agree. Setting goals. Since I was little, I love to make a list, so it's easy for me because I'll write them out.
You look like a list person.
I'm a pitcher. We're very mental.
Me too, right?
But setting goals and just not only setting goals, but figuring out, you know, what am I going to do to reach those goals? That's huge. And I'm big on work ethic, so I think your hard work will show in the end.
Well, that's awesome. And to let everyone know, Wesleyan and West Virginia Wesleyan and Carson Newman have some good minds in their dugout. So I appreciate it, ladies, for you coming. Sara, I appreciate you, what you do for top prospects as well. So if you have any, if anyone's out there looking to take some lessons, Sara will be around at Top Prospects as well. Allison, I'm hoping to see you in the summer hanging around Top Prospects as well. So I think this was a great call, and it's going to be tough to beat this one. So we appreciate you coming on the Mound Visit, and we'll see you sometime soon. So take care, be safe, stay healthy.
Thanks for having us.
Yep.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night.